So hi everyone, welcome to the Consenz co-design session with the Social Design Academy, represented here by Niels, and with the VPA and PA community. I really hope that the members of the communities that have been participating in the creating of the guidelines using Google Docs and using the Discord server for the discussion and other mediums for this purpose will join us, that you can help us to learn from your experience about how we can improve the process, how can we make it much more easier and easier for even for newbies to take part, because those documents are the backbones of the community way of the processes that are guiding the community. And those details that are mentioned in those guidelines are very, very important. Every word counts and every number count. And it is very, very hard in the existing tools to go into the details without creating too much noise, without losing touch with the greater picture. And we are here to provide the platform and the tool to answer this need. So I will take the first, I hope it won't take more than maybe even 7 minutes, 10 minutes, to give some orientation, to tell you about Consenz and to show the demo of the app. And then we will go into the design session itself by listening to you. What are the pains and the gains, what works and what does not work in the current process, and how the platforms that we're working on can improve it and can be useful for the community. We were funded for this specific goal, to provide the platforms that we're working on for the process of creating guidelines. This platform we hope will use for much more other use cases, but for this specific use case, the Catalyst community has supported us, understanding the need, and we hope to be able to deliver. Just for framing our timeline right now, that we hope until the end of the year to launch an MVP version, so we can try really experimenting with the Consenz platform, I hope during Fund 11. And later on, we will keep improving the platform as we go, and as the community will support us for this as well. So I will share the screen for some quick overview. First of all, some look on our roadmap to understand where we're standing and how this meeting is fit into this wider plan of Consenz development. So I will just focus on the first two layers, the experience layer and the functional layer. We have also the trust layer and the execution layer. Maybe in other opportunity, I will expand about those layers on the roadmap. So we have been funded for creating the MVP of Consenz during Fund 7. So we are working right now, our development team are working to create the platform. We have reached out to Catalyst, we have joined Catalyst after building the prototype, and after creating a proof of concept with local communities here in Israel where we are located. And later on, we will continue improving the platform. In parallel, we want to work on the experience layer, as we call it, how to create more than such a functional layer. Is there a question? Honesty, justice. So, someone is not muted. It's not a question. As I said, right now we are working on the functional layer. The platform will function as a tool for creating agreements, for discussions that is productive, and to create a focus to the discussion. The functional layer, I will demonstrate it in a few minutes, but in parallel, we wish to work on experience. We wish to build the platform in the most human-centric manner, in a way that it can provide and can be very useful, very user-friendly, and human-friendly for it to be scaled and for it to really be used as the way of our first proposal that was not funded. We called it a virtual parliament. We wanted to be the parliament of DAOs and of the Catalyst community, but we wanted to be much more accessible than the ways that parliament in national state to get today. And for that, we need to focus on the best user experience, and this is what we are doing today, and to create all the components that are needed for the best design for a web platform: user stories, user journey, personas, and design. So a few minutes just to demonstrate how Consenz platform will work. It stands for changes, but this is the general way that the Consenz functional layer will work, and for you to I hope to understand in a general manner how it can be useful for the purpose of creating guidelines for the proposal assessor and for the veteran proposal assessor, and also for other needs of the Catalyst community. So here we see a page of the current agreement of the decentralized organization, in our case, the Catalyst organization. I took real documents, real discussions that are happening in the community for this demonstration. So we have like guidelines and rewards, we have roles of the challenge team, and many others that can be many other documents that can be uploaded to the Consenz platform instead of the Google Doc. Every document can be tagged with a specific category to easy the navigation and to understanding where we belong. And when admin wish to create, or a user wish to create a new agreement, we start the process. They can edit the proposal, the agreement title, to choose what category it belongs, and to start with typing rationale. Rationale will be a static text to provide some background about this current document, this current agreement. After entering the rationale, the user can start editing and creating the agreement suggestion as a start. So first of all, the agreement is divided into topics, and every topic is divided into sections. So at the beginning, the agreement creator will add a few, how many topics and how many section suggestions that he or she would like to start the process with. In this case, we started with only one section. What are the incentive? What are the goals for the incentive for the PA and how it will work? And then I will go into publishing. Before I publish, I will choose the specific rules of the process. Rules of for how long every proposal, every section proposal or improvement proposal will stand for a vote. If it is a sensitive issue and we wish to create it a little bit more centralized, so we can require admin approval for a suggestion, for section suggestion and improvement suggestion. And later on, we also add, when we go to the trust layer, we can also add how agreement move from a draft status for approved agreement, and then we can do this voting. Our plan is to create this voting on the complete agreement on chain, but this is later on the blog. After choosing the rules, I can publish the agreement, and I can go and see it. Here is the active page of the agreement. Here I can vote, and I can see the different section suggestions of the agreement. If I will go to the current draft, I will see that it is empty, because right now there is no section suggestion that has been received the needed threshold to become part of the draft. So we have the pages where the discussion is happening, and we have the page where the sections that has been agreed upon are added to the draft. So if, let's say right now I will change my user, I will sign from another user, and you can see from here that on this bar show how many supporters are needed for the approval, how many supporters, how many voters for the specific section needed for this section to move from on a vote status to approved status and enter to the draft. So if I will vote for, you can see that it will reduced from 14 to 13. If I will vote against it, it will up for 15. So every vote for reduce the supporter needed. Every vote against will add another one. And from this page, I can also add a new section suggestion. So I will type here my section suggestion. I took here a section, for example, for a real section that I know that has some controversy on the community about bonus reward for assessment on a proposal, on Catalyst proposals that have been approved. So I can publish it right now, and it will be added to the agreement, the active agreement page. And if I will enter into the specific, if I will click on the specific section suggestion, I can see that I can here also I can vote for, and also I can vote against it. I can start the discussion. I can express my opinion about the specific section and publish it, and then start discussing the pros and cons of the specific section suggestion. And this discussion can go on. This is the place to create noise. This is the place to express opinions, to argue if needed, and to continue what right now is happening in parallel in Discord on other challenges and as other channels. But the main, I think, added functionalities that Consenz is provided is also the opportunity to suggest improvement for the specific section suggestion. So here, for the sake of simplicity, I will just change the percentages of the reward from 20% to 5%. I can change other text in the section suggestion as well, and I will publish my suggestion. And now my suggestion will stand in line with the other version. So you can see, you can browse between the different version of the same section. You can vote for this version that you agree with the most, and you can see, and you can move from different section of the same agreement using this this sidebar. Now, 1 second. Sorry, I need to demo. Now, let's say that I return to the agreement a few hours, and more people, more community members has voted, more comments has been added. Right now, you see that this section it's much more closer to being approved. So I will be the users that the last users that voted for. Now the section has been approved, and when I go to the draft, I can see that the section has been added to the draft. If I will go and add and vote for another suggestion, it will be added and it will be approved as well. It will be added to the draft as well. And at this manner, we can create the document in a decentralized manner. And we hope to prove that it can be scalable manner as well, and in a very focused way for the community to engage, that we hope will answer the disadvantages of using Google Docs and other tools right now. So this is the functional layer of Consenz. I will be very happy to, first of all, of course, answer your question if there are any, and get some feedback. But right now, suggestion for changes in the specific UI, in the specific platform, it will take a little bit more time to implement. So I will take note, of course, this meeting has also been recorded, but take into account that we wish to create the surrounding layer of functionality that will onboard the users into this specific functionality of the platform. And for that, we wish to hear from you. And for that, Niels have created this table to hear from you in the current process of creating document and discussing around them. What are the expected outcome? What are the pains and the gains?
The very same people created the lies that I was an agent of as an agent. I'm a rich guy. I don't need whatever the hell it's.
Can somebody turn off their sound?
Yeah.
That's why I did this. Everything is corrupt.
Maybe should be muted. I don't want to mute everyone. Okay. I hope it will stay like this. So this is the purpose of this session. So I open the floor for you. Please, if anyone has question, feedback on the current functionality proposed, I wish to hear. But most of all, let's discuss how things are working now. What are the pains and gains, and how we can use Consenz to improve this.
Is all about preserving their power and control over the American.
Okay, Nathaniel, can it come from you, this background noise? Never mind, right now it's quiet. Okay, the floor is yours.
Well, for me, this is what were new screens, so that's pretty cool. What I would like to know, who in this room already contributed to the PA guideline, because I think that's pretty important. So perhaps people can raise their hand to see if they can contribute it. 1, 2. No, I can't see everybody, but so a couple of people are here. And who knows most about the process? Because for me, and perhaps also for Aharon, the process of creating PA guidelines is a bit of a mystery. I guess we're mostly on the proposer side.
I won't say a mystery. I try to follow and to read the comments on the Google Doc, and also from time to time to jump into the Discord server and with the relevant channels. But yes, I haven't participated directly in this process, so it's very, very important for us to hear from your experience.
So Jeremy, perhaps you could guide us a bit in this process and how it came to be or how it's run.
Yeah, the process as it exists now, it has kind of a time delay mechanism. At a certain point, the document opens, and up until then, we really have no ability to comment on it. So the first goal of improved documentation will be that always on commenting ability. It also has no real versioned repo. If you want to know how the documentation has changed over time, you have to dig through the comments that exist on the document, and it seems to only go back so far, which means there's versions we don't have anymore. And then as the process develops, they open it up, everybody comes in, and based on if they happen to have seen it somewhere, there's not a really good portal to get involved. There's not a place to really send anybody. It's just you got to find that link to that doc. And we're already generating dependencies between docs. So if you are updating the VPA guidelines, you also need to have the VPA eligibility guidelines in the background, and possibly, and more than likely, the PA guidelines in the background. And now we have petitions documentation that's also connected. So we're getting kind of nested dependencies in the documentation, which is good because it gives you that granularity. You may not want to read 60 pages of a guide. You may want to you may only need the 4 pages. So it is good to break things out that have their own processes, call them like systems within the parameters themselves. So we harvest the commenting, we harvest the discussions, we try to, oh boy, you'll follow the Google Docs, you'll be talking about it on Telegram, you'll be in multiple Discord channels on multiple Discord servers. It just happened wherever the people doing it happen to be talking. And of course, the Google Doc is just a really, really rough place to have an actual discussion. You know, you're sidebarred, you're reading long paragraphs if there's any actual insight into the issue at hand. So having the Discord channels is very handy because it allows you to subthread and maybe even section off whole issues into their own channels. And we have those discussions for the VPA guidance like 5 days. It could be longer, obviously. For the PA guide, I want to say it was possibly 2 weeks, something like that. It was longer, but I don't know how much longer. And we try to get something resembling consensus in that period of time. And
how does that work?
That's a little bit challenging. It's for starters, we have no idea. We have no record of participation. That's if you wanted to track it separately on a spreadsheet or something, you might be able to come to something that resembled a conclusion there. But it is good to have that in and out flow. Nobody should be commenting and then committed for that reason. But at the same time, we really do need to be capturing something that looks like data. And the consensus amounts to usually, what would I say, maybe the strongest cases that end up with the most positive comments or something like that. Certainly anything that gets something that looks like maybe, geez, I don't even know how you describe it. I can't describe consensus in the current document. Ultimately, it doesn't matter because we put all that together into a suggestion at some point. That's usually 2 or 3 people kind of trying to collate those discussions and distill them down to essentials and maybe eventually get it to just saying, okay, what about this option or that option? That goes to IOG as a suggestion document. And then you're hoping that the integrity of the document is still there once suggestions are approved. And we did, like for the CA guidelines, the PA guidelines, excuse me, the integrity of the document was not there. There's contradictions throughout it. It contradicts itself. The VPA guideline, go ahead.
When it goes to IOG, you said the document that's been created by the PA community goes to IOG in order to implement it into the catalyst process, and then something breaks. Understand it correctly?
Pretty much, yeah. It's it bottlenecks there at IOG because when it comes out the other side, it can't be changed anymore. And honestly, and so we've got sensed issues right now with the most recent guidelines, and we're waiting to, I mean, we can make our own repos, we can make our own places where we put that information, and we have when we're doing that, but we would like to append them to the documentation. You know, it's not that we want to change it because you can't change it while you're working with it, but we would love to record that within the actual documentation process itself instead of as a separate thing, that if any of the people that are busy on it now are unavailable in, 3 months, that information won't be available either because they're the ones maintaining it. So, this is how this challenge goes. the documentation doesn't belong to us yet. And so we're having a lot of trouble trying to be accountable for what happens in it, trying to be responsible for the changes that happen to it. Yeah, so it kicks up to IOG, and there is issues around, like I was saying, the integrity of the document, where it's possible to put in sections that contradict other sections. This was one question I was going to have for the interface, was if there's any ability at all to nest sections so that they're interdependent. And if all that amounted to was for the platform to kick back, you know, a warning and that says, okay, you're working on something within something else. Have you checked to make sure you're not contradicting that statement? One thing for sure, the sections are going to be useful in Consenz, because as it is now, it's a combination of narrative and sections. And the narrative's nice because it reads well, but the sections are nice because you can change them without affecting the things around them, or it's a little easier to change them without affecting things around them. But it's very organic type of sectioning, like a bullet list within a concept, like eligibility or something like that. And that bullet list certainly gives you the ability to, if you change a sentence, you don't have to worry that you change the meaning of a paragraph. But that kind of interdependency of language as well, the sections should help us solve, I would hope. And the integrity check is certainly, you know, like a human oversight issue on the document. Any kind of tooling that lets us collaborate on integrity would be useful as well. And that's pretty much the whole process. I can state that there's a working group forming who wants to create accountability patterns for this, but they still need tools. And so I think this is a really interesting time. I mean, it's focused on just the VPA guidelines, and the hope is to migrate this documentation completely to the community at some point, and show that we know how to govern something that's as important but as simple as documentation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you went down the rabbit hole. Man. Aharon, some thoughts thinking about this.
Yeah, it is a lot, and also I think I hear from you, we need to take into consideration the specific relationship between the community and IOG. That right now IOG is still governing the process. The version management. I want to hear to ask you that there is a version management on Google Docs. It is not useful for the purpose. What is missing, or what does not work for you on the current feature?
Don't have access to it.
Please, I haven't heard. Can you repeat it?
We can't access the versioning of Google because only the owners of the document can.
I see.
So only IOG can see the versions.
I see. So permissions on Google Docs are not fit to the way that the community is built.
Because you're either an editor where you have full access to the document, or you're just a commenter where you can't see the versioning.
Okay. Okay. And if you or someone else want to elaborate more about the integrity of the document, what exactly do you mean? What is a document that does not have the integrity?
It's just that people who made modification don't have always the whole document in mind, so they change something and they forget about another part, which is no longer accurate because it's just a mistake. Because even when IOG validate the document in the end, they can't read everything. For example, we just uncovered a few days ago a mistake where we left some examples that are in contradiction with the current guidelines because well, no one took the time to read the examples again. So that just this kind of mistake because the document is evolving and there is no final validation of each section. Is it still valid after all the previous changes? I think some sections are dependent between them, and this dependency is not visible. So it's only when you leave the document for a few days, you forget about it, and then you start reading from top to bottom, and that's when you notice that there are problems. But you need to take the time to actually do it. Or so they just I think a mixture of time constraint and yeah, and of process, because there is no one to really validate the document in the end. So yeah.
There is some obligation from the IOG team to read and to implement the guidelines, or this guideline is just a recommendation from the community to the IOG team?
For now, I think it's more a recommendation because they are taking the final decision. They try to respect the community views, but in the end, they are making the decision because they are running the show for now, because well, the community is not yet able to take care of itself.
Yeah,
so for now, IOG makes the decision, but they are trying more and more to weigh in the community's sentiment in their decision.
Yeah, this is true for the whole Catalyst process. Who is in the Catalyst in the IOG team is responsible for curating?
Well, I think it's mostly Daniel and Chris, from what I've seen, but I don't know. It's mostly Daniel, Chris, and some people from the circle where IOG is trying also to validate things with them. So, for example, not this fund, but previous fund, it was mostly Nadia who committed the final version to IOG. I worked with her on that, but yeah, it depends. But they are trying to delegate more and more to people in the community.
So these are the community manager and the product owner, if I'm not wrong, of the IOG team. Okay.
I think that there might be other people, but that's the two I observe, Chris and Daniel.
Okay.
Who validate well, Google Doc suggestions.
Well, Jeremy, you did give a lot of inputs, but I guess that there is more. So maybe someone can add or
what we could, because obviously if we are on this call and we are with 10, perhaps some pains and some gains are in the top of your mind. And I don't know if people are familiar with Miro. But what we could do is go to the board and take like 5 to 7 minutes just to write down what your personal pains are. And perhaps in the next column, you can put some direction for a solution. And the simplest way to do this is to, I think I posted the board in chat.
Yeah, I will do it now.
Oh, and the simplest way to do this is just to copy the, let's call it a social template. And what the intent is of this this exercise is to see if we can find patterns for people. For one, you can offload your pain and gains, your personal pain and gains. We can take this on board to come up with, to search for patterns and to search for direction to improve the software. So is that something we can do? Is that something people are familiar with, perhaps people in this channel are not familiar with Miro.
I try to join on Miro, but I'm currently on my phone, so it's
yeah, it's best
to get the link from my phone to my computer. But I just want to add just two important points. I agree with everything Jeremy said, but there is another pain point. For example, I've been participating to the guidelines since Fund 2, and what I've noticed is that sometimes there are statements, and what happened is that between funds, the intent between the original that was behind the original statement is get lost in the process, and people don't remember why we put a certain rule in the guideline, for example. And what is missing in Google Docs is a sort of metadata around it to say, well, we wrote that because blah blah blah, and that's something that is really missing in my point of view, because when people start inventing meanings that don't exist behind rules, and yeah, that's one of the pain points for me from the Google Doc, because it's well, some data just get lost in the process, or someone would have to read all the comments to understand why a change came. And so there's something, and there is another problem. It's more about voting power of participants, because for example, I see that for me guidelines editing is like brain surgery, you know, and if you're in an operation room, you don't want the 5 interns to have the same voting power than the main surgeon, for example. You want the surgeon to make the final call on your brain, not the interns with just a year of experience. So it's something that bothers me a little bit with simple voting, where the experience of people is not taken into account. So I don't know, I don't have a solution for this, but I just wanted to point this out.
Right now, the document, the Google Doc, is open for commenting and editing by all, or just commenting, and who are responsible for editing?
Well, it's in suggestion mode, so you can write comments, you can select text and write a comment on your selection, or you can directly edit, and your edit will appear as a suggestion.
As a suggestion,
and who can do it, and everyone who has the URL can. And that was a problem last time, because at some point someone decided to copy and paste half of the document. So you had half of the document which was striked out, and the same text pasted below. So no one could edit anything anymore, because no one knew what was true and what was not. So, or even if some change were made or not. So it was a real mess, because it's open to anyone. You can't, or IOG would have to namely to add people by name to the document. So it's again a limitation from Google Doc, because you can't, and also a problem with Google Doc, that when it's open for suggestion, as soon as you open the document, if you type on the keyboard, it becomes a suggestion. So there are many people who make simple mistakes, or who copy and paste anything in the document, because it just opened and they make a mistake on their keyboard, and it ends up in the document. So
even by just suggesting, you can create too much noise and disrupt the process.
Yeah, either voluntarily or accidentally. It's
yeah, it sounds like it's happening by accident, but actually it also means that it's open for attack. If
I think that we've been very lucky so far, because we're not really attacked. But yeah,
I understand. Okay. I also heard from Jeremy before that there is some dependency on specific people, the ones that are suggesting changes for the guidance document, and if they are not part of the process anymore, that can happen. So the community cannot continue, if I understand correctly. Is someone wish to elaborate? Yeah, please.
Well, there are two kind of dependencies. There are because there are several documents which are linked in the guidelines. Those documents were sometimes written by other people, and maybe those people are no longer, are not available in the short window where the document is open for comment. And then changes are made. Then these changes are not good because, the people who made the change did not have the whole history and did not understand what they were doing. This happened not this fund, but the previous fund, for me at least, where I made a lot of edits and they were mostly destroyed by other people. And I had to work all night with Nadia to restore the idea, the main idea and the coherence of the document. But the problem is mainly because the document is not open for comment all the time. So we really have a short window to participate. And if key people are not available at this moment, then the document may get damaged is maybe too big a word, but it's the process becomes suboptimal at this point because there are not a lot of people who are very familiar with the guidelines. For example, Jeremy and I are probably people who are the more familiar with it in this call, but it's we're not a lot to know the document intimately.
Well, Nathaniel, you raised your hand, but Danny, I'm happy to see you here. We'll be happy to listen also from the IOG perspective. So if you're not in a rush, I will give Nathaniel to speak, and later on, after that? Sure. Okay. Go, Nathaniel, please.
Okay, thank you very much. I think mine is more of a contribution. The guidelines, it should have a memorandum for the guidelines, because if you look at every bill, like the mainstream, like legislative perspective, every bill comes with a memorandum. So if we are going to go through the guidelines and then edit certain portions and whatnot, the memorandum will serve as a guide so that you know the intent of what you seek to edit, the reason behind the sections in the guidelines. The memorandum will explain so that in unison, and you can understand the intent of the framing of the guidelines, so that if you want any reference, maybe you see a section you want to add to the section, but you don't understand it, you are having problem with interpreting it wrongly and whatnot. But if you could refer to the memorandum that is for the guideline, you will be able to understand what the purpose of that section is, and then that will also inform your modification as such. Thank you.
Yeah, very, very important. And also, I'm happy that you're here because you really know the ways that laws in states is work as from version, and I wish also to take some inspiration. I guess I only guess that everybody here have some criticism about the ways that your state is working, and you know that it can be improved, but still there are things that are working. There are very complicated processes that the national state do proceed with, and if we can take some inspiration from specific processes and integrate them into our tools, it can be great. So Danny, I will, if you can share with us a little bit about the IOG perspective, how do you receive the document of the guidelines? How do you work with the community? How decisions are being made inside the team? It would be grateful.
Yeah. For me personally, when I think of it, what I would love to get us is to that environment where, as John has probably mentioned just a couple of moments earlier as well, forgive me if it was somebody else, but the fact that the documents are open just for a limited period of time for comments. I would love us to get to the point where it doesn't really matter when the document is open for comments in that specific form, because those guidelines are known throughout the time space of the fund, right? We're going to move on to the next stage in a couple of weeks. We're going to be voting. We're going to forget the fact that we've had the SSQA. We're going to forget there was like the proposal assessor stage. We're going to forget there was the veteran proposal assessor stage, because we're so busy with all the things which are happening right here, right now. But the fact is that those documents are still there. They're still public. And we know that in 1 month, one fund cycle, they're going to come back again at certain time when they're going to be in action, right? So figuring out how we can bridge the gap of rushing towards the deadline of like when we actually need to implement these things, so that people can actually properly socialize these changes, understand them, and implement them successfully, is I think what would be a big focus to figure out in coming months, right? Because even though, like, for example, the proposal assessor stage is already gone, there's nothing that really prevents any working group to start thinking about them and ideating about them already now. But it also assumes the fact that somebody has a time and resource to start thinking and dedicating to it as we're flowing with the river down the line as well, right? So it's all about the attention span. So I think figuring out how we can make these documents be living regardless of the timeline, I think would be a really beneficial thing, because then we alleviate the pressure of rushing things down to the line. Because from our perspective, right, like from IO side of the things, we need to make sure that the train as a whole is moving forward and the things are aligned. And that's why, like, when I open the documents, they usually come up, a stage or so before they become active, because of like natural operational cycle. But I think we need to extend it out so that, those conversations can be ongoing and the input can be introduced much in advance. So there can be also like a community consensus around it that can also then come forward at the present stage as an endorsed recommendation, that then we don't have to make a decision, because we're in it collectively. And in that sense, we can start incorporating those things along the line, and they can be mature, so that by the time those stages begin, everybody's happy camper, because everybody understands the rules of the game, and you're not focused on fixing up the guidelines, but you're more focused on about your own work that you need to deliver as part of that stage. Because I think it's also stressful for everyone to be participating in their role during the week when they're active, and at the same time figuring out what those rules should be and how to navigate all the updates and everything to it. So stretching out the timeline, knowing the fact that the documents are always available, they're always public, they never actually went to private, shouldn't deter us from the fact that we can have the ideation and recommendations rolling on an ongoing basis, rather than right up to the deadline. So I would love to figure out how we can make sure that that flow becomes more part of the process and internalized from all participants.
Right now, it's not impossible because of the attention needed from the team. And if you keep the Google Doc open for commenting during the whole fund timeline, then what will happen? Why won't you be able to just keep it open for commenting, and then from moving from phase to phase, check out the input from the community and decided how to implement it into the guideline?
I mean, it is possible. What often happens is that the conversations on those comments, there may not be the best platform and format to actually ideate. I mean, it's a good place to write a couple of notes, but then a lot of those the changes, they really need to be taken out of there and then brought back as a ready piece. So I'm rather thinking about those official agreed guidelines as the final state. So, that document can be copied over and can be edited as a sideways, so that we know what that original document is and how those new ready pieces could fit in there. John knows as well, like when you open it to comments, somebody just comes in the middle of the night and just deletes everything, and then it just makes it extremely impossible to actually make sense of anything, and then need to go manually through it and reject the changes. And I don't think it's the best way of using our time collectively in navigating what those edits are. So I think it's a great initial collaboration tool to get some juice started, but I think of it more as a starting point, which should lead to somewhere else where the platform can really support an ideation in a better sense, and then come back and insert it as a final version. And maybe in the future, it may not even be a Google Doc. It might be something else that could be embedded in another platform or something. I don't know what that could be, But those are just my thoughts of it.
This is why we're here, to create the tools that maybe replace the Google Doc. We hope so. Yeah, but first, to learn what's happening now in order to make it, to design it in the right way.
It makes me think of what Microsoft is doing with their deployment of Windows systems, right? They have they use circles, they have development circles, and the outer ring is the most close to the end product. And the more you go inwards, it's more of a beta, a testing of things. What I hear most is that you want some sort of stage link the documentation to the stages, but where does that need come from? Is there so much going on in a assessment round that the rules need to be made up as we fly? Is that what I hear? Daniel?
I think there's definitely discovery that happens that fast. I mean, we're discovering as we go, for sure. But there really is that need. You got to lock the document for work because these are the standards people have to follow. So you're looking almost at having like 3 documents, you know, a official document that doesn't change. It changes one time per fund cycle, and that's to be updated on some of, you know, significant date. We'd have to figure out what date that was in particular, like what is its relevance. Because if it's the day that VPA work starts, for example, for the VPA document, then you're locking in certain behavior patterns there too. So how much process preparation can a VPA do in the days leading up to the VPA work? And this is all, I mean, it's a fast iterating fund. We shouldn't get too caught up in perfect processes, but there is, if you do lock it the day that VPA work starts, then it means that the day before, whatever the document said was probably not right. So you can't be training, you can't be prepping people. When should Catalyst School give their official, like, final how to be a VPA class that relies on that documentation? So thinking about that locking date for the main document is important. And then there should be the always on, like, Consenz version of the document that is the accessible portal to the process of thinking about the role and capturing. I mean, not everything that we discover about the role needs to be in the guidelines. Sometimes what we discover about the role needs to be in a different set of guidelines, proposal guidelines or something like that. So that needs to be accessible by anybody with any role in the system. And then there's another layer on top of that that has to be a working document where people who want to be held accountable for that intermediate step are able to bridge the gap by being able to change what the final document looks like. So this could also be Consenz, because this working group needs tools too, to where they can iterate the document and move consensus from another document. Because so let's say Consenz is running the main community accessible document, and that's always on, it's always open, but it's going to get pretty full and it's going to get pretty confusing. So you need another version of that document where it's kind of pre-assembled, maybe for like a beta test, like Naz was saying. So that you can take that information and see if that's the document that people want to approve. And if it doesn't look right, I mean, that integrity check's really important, because you may assemble a version of it that has internal contradictions that mean that you need to kick out some of those changes and only consider other changes. That kind of complication is going to require focus. And it's going to require focus from people who are willing to put in almost a full fund's worth of work to think about it and to keep it within their scope. So it does seem like there would be multiple forms of the document in play at any given time in order to satisfy certain criteria for being able to capture change.
Oh, okay. Mixing a little bit.
Document.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, sure, George. Please go ahead.
Yeah, very good discussion. From my side, some of the points mentioned are right. Like everyone gets in without a specific direction. So, like when we have the document entirely opened out and everyone rushes in, it's like we don't know what everyone's stage is. What is this their first one time, or how many funds they had participated, what amount of experience they have. So when they edit, it comes with that. So in this case, for example, this particular forum, we are doing the Miro board, we are editing this particular section, and only the teams here are able to edit because we are interested in this specific action to go forward. So that is the specific amount of process we need to bring in. So when we want to edit the VPA guideline, it has to be open like this forum where people interested come in and they are given the privileges to edit, or they are given the specific focus. Okay, these are the features we want to improve from Fund 8 to Fund 9, Fund 9 to Fund 10, so that they can attentively focus on that instead of the total picture. Every time everyone comes with a learning exercise, and it's a struggle to see that continuity, and the people who are leading should take that and say, this is product owner, and this is what we have done in the previous iteration from Fund 8 to Fund 9. This is what we want to focus on from Fund 9 to Fund 10. If you have other items, you can list it. It's not something for, so you get a little more of a focused way of working on the document and a clear picture of what is the feature or specific set of issues we want to address. Thank you.
I wonder if we set some specific roles in the process, how if it can align with the ways that the Catalyst communities works, because as a permissionless community, the permissionless process, people are coming and going. People can come for a few weeks, a few months to give a lot of time and effort in the process, and then to continue for other projects or completely vanish. It's also happening. So if we set the roles to create this continuity between funds in the document, and then people are not obligated, you know, it's not a workplace when you need to come every day to get your salary. If people come and go, maybe the continuity will be broken from fund to fund.
Yeah, it is broken, meaning continuity is not there. So without continuity, how do we still have an effective process?
Yes.
The process cannot be like, okay, I just entered in, so I can start editing. So that is not the process. So the process says, okay, it is permissionless and a lot of things are there, but we still need some boundaries in this to work through. That's why there is the person who is leading that effort should take that, and it is absolutely clear that this is where the team is at least now temporarily structured. So there is a certain amount of organization, or else it will become like the Telegram chat. We have 1,000 chat items, and someone kind of says, okay, this is tick mark, this is no tick mark. Like that is like a waste of 1,000 people's effort. That is the other side you need to see. Is it just to come in and just log some ideas, or is it to direct it for an improvement in the process? So do we want 1,000 people to just comment, or do we want these ideas to come to fruition? So we need to direct it in a proper way, channel it right.
Yeah. So there is a need for continuity, and there is a need for structure. And we maybe setting roles, maybe we need to find another solution for answering this need.
We need to go beyond where we are. Yeah.
Thank you. Danny, you raised your hand?
Yeah, I was just going to build upon that. And again, I picked this upon one of the chats, probably on Discord, hard keeping track of. But what I found was really also interesting is that as we go through so many changes, each fund, there's so much things happening, right? Like very often, like you don't recognize the document from one place to another. And what I think having an opportunity of having a platform where, you know, we can track the changes, but also why those changes took place in the first place, would I think give a lot more clarity down the line. We're trying to reintroduce something else that actually may just replace that. And then we don't have things in the guidelines which might be contradicting each other or really lowering the efficiency of its effect, because we may no longer need something. And it was maybe a temporary thing, which was for something specific, but it's no longer required because it was fixed by another process. And having that trackability of the history of the changes of like why they were put in the first place, I think would also give a lot of leverage to people thinking about how can it be improved. Why I'm thinking of it, proposal assessor guideline, what is it now, 30 pages or something close to that? And it seems like it just keeps on expanding. So I think also could help us consolidate some of the information, which very often is left there as a remnant of the past, which may not need to be necessary. But in a current structure of how we operate, it's very difficult to actually find out which things may not be relevant anymore, and maybe can give a more breathing space and then be a bit more understandable for somebody who engages with the process for the first time. I remember the first time we engaged as a proposal assessors, community advisors, back then, you know, it was a 1-pager, 2 pages. Next fund, 10 pages. Following fund, 30 pages. So I think having that kind of collaboration tool would go a long way of not only improving the way how and when we iterate on those documents, but also keeping in mind why are we iterating on any given point, which I think could be extremely valuable as well.
This space toward the end of next year, it will be a book. It will require.
You don't like reading books, is that it?
Those are the books that I like to read.
It's not a great onboarding tool either, right? Like if you wanted to attract, but I get it. I'm
thinking about a lawyer office where yes, the whole wall is just a Low's book, and yeah, I think if we can avoid it, maybe it will be for the best, for for better onboarding the new user to the process. We need to make it thinner.
For sure. And just before I let you then, apologies. One other thing I wanted to mention is also around how we, and of course I dropped the thought. Dan, go ahead. I'll think of it and then I'll come back. too many thoughts.
I know the feeling. I tried grabbing onto the thoughts and scribbling some notes down. Hi everyone, great to be here. Thanks Aharon and Niels for doing this presentation. Amazing product. I really enjoy seeing it and dreaming of what can be done with it. So I want to build upon what George and Danny also said in regards to continuation of the process. So it might be that we don't necessarily need continuation of people, but it's just that we have to focus on the process so that the process is established in a way that it can be picked up by anyone at any time. And for this, I could imagine the bounty board and how Swarm and some other communities are currently using D-Work could maybe have a huge impact if it would be integrated. So if Consenz could integrate into D-Work, meaning that you could do the discussions. So creating the task and the bounties in D-Work, that way you would also have a beginning of an audit trail. that could be copied into GitHub, where you could create automated reports. And then when these tasks become discussable, you discuss them within Consenz, and the result and all the voting is happening in Consenz, and just the result is posted back into dwork. And if approved, the task within dwork gets approved and would give the bounty to the person then that did the change request, for example.
Interesting thought. Yeah, we have some thoughts about bounties and about positive feedback and rewards for positive contributors to the process. It's down the road. It's ahead in the roadmap. What your suggestion will take it into consideration for sure. It's very interesting the process that you suggested. Thank you.
That way you wouldn't have to create a bounty system yourself, but would use dwork as a bounty layer or interface, so to say.
Yeah, I hope that until then they will integrate, they will deploy it to Cardano or at least to Milcomeda and not just.
Yeah, this will make it work somehow by beginning of next year. Don't worry about that. Worry about the logical integration with Consenz, I would say, and some other one will do the rest.
No, because okay, I will catch your optimistic view about it. Any other thoughts, ideas, feedbacks? Yeah, George, go ahead, please.
Yeah, great presentation. I love the visuals you had at the beginning. It looks really sharp and well needed. As someone who spends a lot of time in documentation, anything that improves that and especially kind of democratizes it is pretty exciting for me. So, but yeah, I guess there's some of the obvious things, like things like credentials, like we were talking about before. It kind of makes sense that someone who just jumps in can't easily make a change, or we've got Sybil resistance is another thing. So like, if it is democratic, well, then you've got to think about is it Sybil resistant? Because if you just have to have a wallet or certain thing that's really easy to get, then you could change a really big document that's really important for a certain process and break everything. So I guess having, whether it's a credential or some sort of roles, these kind of things are going to be pretty important, or even multi-level. A single role will probably be useful at the beginning or something like that. But like there's kind of like levels of what's useful. Like it's always like, regardless of who you are, it's useful for you to be able to contribute some comments or maybe indicate an upvote or something like that. But know that that's not necessarily a vote that has, it's got the check. It's not got the credential. It's not got this. But for people to have some way to indicate those things without having certain credentials. So this kind of levels of roles and responsibilities kind of side, that to me will be, I don't think we'd see it in the early, you probably don't need to do it early on, because I don't think we're going to get many people rushing in to do a Sybil attack on a document too much, but it would be something that is definitely plausible in the not too distant future.
Yeah, for sure. And we do another proposal from Fund 8, a funded proposal for Consenz is for researching DID integration. So we are still working with on that with the another group, and again down the road on our roadmap. But it's a very important point to mention. To think about how we can be civil attack resistance in the processes, because this can be very entry point for attackers on the whole process. It can be very dangerous if we don't take it into account as we design the system. Yeah, thank you for that.
And another thing I had in mind is like for instance parameters and stuff. There's some that are going to be like numeric values or certain more easy kind of fixed kind of values. And if those were in a smart contract, it'd be great to have those kind of like imported into the document rather than being stored on the document itself. It's just referencing another contract or something elsewhere. So it's labeled and got a value in another location, and then it's just pulled in and referenced and used in whatever capacity it is. And that would then give you that kind of instant, if something changes, the governance is going towards that smart contract, which is changing something, but then anything else that is a dependency of that uses that, then will naturally be updated. That's not something that you'll need to solve in the short term, but it's just something that came into my mind when we were chatting about it earlier. Similar with, I think, the dependencies as well. Like if you have a section, like here's some about how we're using this percentage value, and then at the bottom there's some sort of extra policy information. If that has a dependency on that information at the top. If you remove this, then it automatically removes the dependency as well, because obviously this relies on this. Not something for first version, but again, it's something that came to my head as a nice thing to think about.
Yeah. Wow, I would really like to see it. Creation, integrating the discussion with the parameter directly into the code. Yeah, this is part of the execution layer in our roadmap. Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, Danny.
Yeah, and I'll probably just reflect on that attack vector. I think very often what may be underappreciated, that even though it may not be an obvious way to attack, quote unquote, someone through the things like documentation, but very often it is also about diverting the attention of people who participate in that ecosystem and sort of like wasting their time and energy now that they need to focus on something because now somebody's messing with documentation and whatnot, which could be just the divergence from something else, so that you don't almost a distraction, right? Like, oh, let me throw a bomb over here, and they're going to be so busy and trying to fix over there, where I'm just going to be and do something unnoticed over here. So like in that sense, like it is definitely a thing which takes away a lot of energy and a feel from the people who participate, and you can very much overwhelm the system if you start attacking all these different vectors, and then you just create confusion, really. And it's definitely something to think about. But for me, I think one of the biggest actionable things that is coming out of the latest learnings is the fact figuring out what is the time when we want to have this documentation be locked, so that all the dependencies down the line can actually start adapting them. It was mentioned Catalyst School, they need time ahead to process this information, to produce an output, and then maybe hold some workshops ahead of the time that we actually start, different stages and whatnot. All the people who actually participate, they can socialize and properly understand these changes, because if we do it too close to the deadline, we're just really not setting ourselves collectively for success, right? Because it's just too much and too quick of that time frame. So working our back way in that timeline, seeing what those drop-off dates would be, and then sort of like sticking to it as a road plan, perhaps for a fun 10, like, do we need to have 1 week in advance? Is it enough when the documents are finalized, and then have the ideation weeks in ahead, and just sort of like putting it all together so that everybody else can participate more at ease and we can flow easier through the system. So when the time comes to perform the roles, we can focus on the roles itself rather than, the structure underneath it, which would make it much easier. And I think enjoyable for people as well, because we would have a shared understanding and not as much pressure to deliver things last minute. And I think that's enjoyable for everyone involved.
Catalyst School has been mentioned before, and now that you talked about it again, I understand that Catalyst School is a very important actor in the process of creating the guideline, because they need to receive, they're using the guideline, the customer for the new PAs and existing PAs, and taking in and working with them to curate the timeline is very important. Thank you for mentioning. George, done again. You are still muted, George, please.
Yeah, 2 more questions. One is on the reward itself. Like when we do work or when we do put in effort as a team and as a group, we are participating with some people who are core leaders, and the reward typically is people who are inside the system. So it will be good to show what is the reward. So the D work is a pattern where we are now trying to put the different activities and put the what are the priority items that are being handled and what is the bounty attached to that. So it gives a little more of clarity, saying, okay, your effort is not wasted. Your effort is being rewarded to. It is in the right direction as an organization. So that is one thing I would add more clarity. So all the tools we are using are listed in one along the PA guideline. At the end, all the resources are shown, like whether it is Telegram, Discord, DWork, any now Consenz, Miro board, everything is listed. So anyone coming in can see all these and request for access or whatever he needs. But what is the effort someone puts in, and is it getting recognized and rewarded by the organization? So that is one side. And the other side is, we haven't talked about the inside the document. So as I earlier started, I'm interested in the document itself. When we set, how do we set the max limits? So max limits, meaning when we look at the peer review this time, we see one project has 120 reviews. So we kind of lost the intention of the peer review. I would say, like, the peer review is to guide the voter, and the voter is not going to read 120 reviews. And the second point in the peer review we say excellent means 2-page, 3-page. And the voter is looking in the cell phone. He is not looking at 2-page review. He is just breezing through and voting. So we lost the purpose, or we kind of disconnected two pieces of this puzzle in a way. And so I would look at it a little more critically, saying the proposal, if it is going to be an excellent review, it is more aligned to the proposal itself, meaning the proposer who is reading it can benefit from it rather than the voter. So it's going towards the proposer. So I see two angles in this. One is the need for the peer review aligned towards the proposer, where he is giving a very detailed review and in-depth analysis of from his strength, expertise, so the proposer can take it and improve his proposal. And the other side is the voter side, where he is looking for a gist of what the proposal stands for. And he just needs to look at, okay, does the proposal align with the Cardano goals for the highest potential? And the voter reads it and says, okay, all those points and those review points make sense, and I can take, or I don't want to vote, or I can vote. So I see that separation, the requirement or the need to separate the proposal review. If you want to be detailed and excellent, it has to be towards the proposer. If you want to be simplified and provide a gist, it has to go towards the voter. So that is the other thought process, because this is what we do in our product development process. We want a detailed review as a proposer or a product idea. We want the best knowledge, best experts to come in, give the best knowledge, and so I can take it forward, the highest quality product or proposal to the next stage. So I want the best inputs in. So those two are the points I want to raise.
I think that we a little bit digress here from the main topic, but I wish to comment also, because I know, as far as I understand, in previous funds, there was the feedback phase where in the ideation, where you put the proposal, the first draft of the proposal, and get feedback from the community, and this was supposed to be the answer for the proposal, and then for the proposers, and then the community, the then community advisor to the proposal advisor can focus on providing the relevant information for the voters. But then people just put in all these placeholders, and when we saw that it really didn't work. But we digress. It's an important point, but if we can keep focusing on the process of creating the guidelines.
Yeah, but we had a breakdown because the people who are coming in are not experts enough to give the feedback. So that is where we lacked. So we said, okay, if we lack something, then how do we enhance that knowledge space so that people coming in as PAs are reasonable enough to provide improvements? If they are right now, since we are contributing to the voter, it doesn't mean like, okay, it doesn't matter. Like whoever comes in just starts feeding in input, whether he's good in it or not. So that's why we see a lot of random inputs coming in and simple edit saying this is a good proposal like that. So where there is no meaningful contribution. So the layer we had was very important. It's just that because it didn't function right, instead of we finding it, how to improve it, we totally took it out. And it kind of disabled a certain important quality of proposal that should come through. And we lost that piece in, so was this in Fund 6? I didn't see it in Fund 8.
I think
The
it's
feedback
changed.
stage.
No, it's changed. I think I think in Fund 8, this was the first time that a submitting proposal was open for the whole period and not and it was not closed for the first 2 weeks. I think this is how it went.
Okay. Yeah, I joined in Fund 8. So
yeah, so until Fund 8,
my visibility is in Fund 8 standpoint.
Yeah, so it, again, if we have this this continuity of the way of thinking, why things are working the way they are, maybe for you as not a newcomer, but when you came as end Fund 8 and you have the way to get that information, then you will know that why things are as they are, unperfect as they are. Yeah, Dan, please go ahead.
I like George's thought process. Maybe it's a bit out there, but it's an idea to maybe develop this further into asking VPAs to provide this quick one-sentence summary rationale for the voters. But that's another topic, and it's a kind of good segue to what I wanted to say before. And what a big pain point is lack of focus, because I see there's like this big document and there's discussions on like 50, 60 things. And when the document even becomes bigger, there will be more discussions. So another extreme idea, I don't know if Danny's still here listening, maybe we say the document freeze is happening. So the document freeze for Fund 10 guidelines and everything is happening 1 week after the voting of Fund 9 ends. And every change that wants to be implemented is implemented one by one. So if there's one change, it's being discussed and then implemented. If there's another change coming, it has to go behind this one. And this way it would allow the whole community to focus on one change. People can prepare other their arguments for other changes in advance, but the discussion is happening and focused around one change, and you time it. You say, okay, this is being discussed for, depending on the size of the matter and the impact, let's say 24 or 72 hours. And after this time period, you move on to the next one. Yeah.
Well, I see that this session and this session is providing, I think, input for two purposes. One, from our original intent is for gathering information, gathering input for the design of Consenz, but also I see that there is a lot of improvement suggestion for the current process, and it's very good because there will be, until Consenz will be ready, it will be a few months from now. We're still working on the MVP, as I said. So I'm happy to see that this meeting also provides this more immediate value for the process. Well, if it's okay by you, I would like to start wrap up this session. If there are any more comments, ideas, suggestions, questions about Consenz platform, about the process of creating guidelines, please, I will be very glad to hear. Okay. If there is none,
yeah,
so
it would be important to have a forum like this in order to take the next steps instead of totally independent work. Yeah, forum like the Jeremy and other team members who had been active in it for longer, and so how the other forums which are discussing, or the Discord or the DWork, how these tools coming together in this work you are going to take up, which will So this is another layer we are adding on top of what is existing. So how these all comes together. What does it mean when we participate together? And when we put the effort in, who is going to be rewarded for this effort? So I would like to have a little more of that kind of a clarity. Is the final output as a team going to benefit one individual, or are we going to have a community where the participants get the benefit of the effort they put in?
If it's okay, I will keep it as an open question. This in the original plan, we have planned 3 of these sessions, and maybe the next 2 we'll try to schedule them in some kind of alliance with the process of Fund 11, actually, Fund 10, sorry. But also we will raise the question of rewards and how we create good communication between the communications tools. As said, it is very important. It's something that we are aware of and try to keep our attention that there are many platforms that are being used by the community. It's adding more noise and create more overwhelming experience for the user, and we try to create a new platform that can we understand that it can bring even more noise. So to bring this platform in ways that it can communicate with the other tools that have been used by the community and reduce the noise and create a structure and bring this value. This is something that we intend to do. We hope, we really hope that we will be able to deliver as well. So I kept the chat. I haven't gotten a chance during this meeting to read the chats, but I copy paste it and I will read it later. This recording will be uploaded to the Swarm YouTube channel. So if there are more other people that participated in the VPA or PA guidelines that are watching now on YouTube, please comment. Your feedback will be most appreciated and will be useful for us. And we will continue this conversation later on, not next week, but we will notify you when it will happen. Thank you all. It was a great session for all our expectation. Goodbye for now.